First, thank you for the invitation, and really thank you for organizing this event today. This is actually quite personal. I'm originally from Senegal, so I'm really a product of that demographic dividend and that migration. I left Senegal in 1997 to study in America and spent 15 years in the US before moving to the UK 7 years ago to invest in Africa at Helios. So it's really a personal journey, and it's really a relevant topic. Now, the question is Africa open for business? And I would say the answer is yes, but there is a but. The but is, one, you have to commit. Two, you have to be entrepreneurial. And three, it has to be a win-win relationship. And we'll dive more into it. Now, I think, the discussion earlier this morning talked about the range of opportunities across Africa and the challenges. And clearly, Africa is a supply-short market, whether it is in power, education, housing, in a wide range of sectors. The question is, how come those needs have not been met yet? So before we discuss opportunities, the question is, look, all those needs have been there for a really long time. How come nobody's providing those solutions? So I'll try to maybe touch on some of the key challenges, and then we're going to talk about how can we address them and what are the opportunities as a private investor or as a private company. I think first challenge here you have is that, yes, we've been talking about Africa, but it's a very fragmented market. So you have 1 billion people, but when you spread across more than 50 countries, you have microeconomies. And the challenge with that is, if I'm a company in Spain that says, I want to expand into Africa, first, where do I start? Do I need to get smart on Senegal, Ivory Coast, Mali, and 50 other countries? That's a lot of investment. That's a lot of work. And what's the size of the prize? Senegal's economy is 30 billion GDP. So you spend a lot of time doing work for one country, and the prize is not the size of China. So the challenge is that fragmentation increases the cost to enter, and I would say scares people away. In addition, there's a lot of negative noise about Africa, as we all know. So the second part I would say here is that it's a very high-cost environment. Some of the panelists earlier talked about how it's sometimes cheap to hire somebody from Spain as an engineer to work in Africa than hire somebody out of Africa. So Africa is a very high-cost environment. And here are just a couple examples. If you look at the typical middle-class family in India, right, let's say they make $2,000 a month. If you look at the baskets of goods and services they can buy from housing, education, food, and so on, for somebody in Nigeria to enjoy the same basket of goods and services, they need to make 2.5 times as much. So what costs $2,000 in India costs $5,000 in Nigeria. So what is the implication? Yes, you may have a rising GDP per capita. You may have rising income levels. But given the high cost, people are still poor. And what is the implication is, if I'm a business in Spain today saying, I want to enter Senegal, I want to enter Nigeria, if I'm trying to compete for that dollar a day that the person makes, it's going to be a tough opportunity because things are already so expensive, I don't have that much of a discretionary income. So my focus should be more on how do I save that person money. So number two, so high cost environment. The third part, I would say the challenge is in terms of execution. So what I mean by execution is you're building simple businesses, but to be able to hire people, scale the business, manage logistics can be really complicated, expensive, and time consuming. So how do you have operational excellence? And quite often what kills you is not the lack of opportunity. We all know they need power, but what kills you is building that power plant on time and on cost and getting all the approvals you need. So that coordination challenge. And I think it's another layer, which is coordination challenge. Quite often, many of these large projects and businesses require many third-party dependencies. Let's say you give an example of a power plant. If I'm building a private power plant, we have one challenge. Number one is I need to have a power company for the collections. I need to have a distribution company, and the government needs to pay me. These are all variables I don't control. Am I going to invest $100 million where I don't know whether the government is going to pay me and whether I can collect on my customers? So you have this coordination problem that you don't control. And so the final one is funding and funding cost, right? When you have high inflation and you have markets where cost of funding local currency in Ghana could be north of 20%, how am I going to deliver a supernormal return? So those are some of the challenges. Now, in that context, what do I see as the opportunities? Because the reality is, again, there are opportunities and businesses do make money in a range of countries, from the DRC to Cairo to Dakar. I think number one is actually this challenge of affordability. So people have needs, but they're already spending money on some basic needs. Could be I spend money every day to buy kerosene for my lamp. So my model should be not about how can I come and sell you a light bulb? How can I come and compete against that? The question should be, if you're spending 50 cents a day on lighting, can I give you something that's much cheaper as a solution and save you money? Or for the same amount of money, can I give you a superior product? Can I give you actually power by the hour through, prepaid, solar powered, and you will use your mobile phone to have access to power? So the question should be not about how can I take money from your wallet. The question should be, how can I save you money? And if you do that, there is demand for it, right? So companies like JB Foods, for example, focus a lot on seasonings and condiments. And they make small packets that are really affordable and have capillarity to distribute the products in the market. They're not going there to sell expensive products. Affordability is key. The earlier discussion was about the rising middle class and how it's a small population, 50 million. Don't target the middle class, target the mass market that has a few dollars a day, but needs affordable products. So you can address businesses on the consumer side, direct consumer, but the reality is the entire ecosystem, all the corporations have this issue of high cost. Whether I'm a manufacturer, whether I am a real estate company, whether I'm a hospital, we all have high cost structures, or even banks. So what is the solution is, how we invest in the core infrastructure, that if you make the right investment, it lowers the cost for everybody. Let me give you one example, telecom towers. So look at an example of a place like the DRC, size of Western Europe. People want to have access to mobile telephony, but the challenge is this. It costs $250,000 to build one antenna in the DRC. And you need to have one for every 2,000 to 3,000 population. $250,000. On top of that, because you don't have access to electricity, you need to have a diesel generator. And that costs you probably $2,500 a month in monthly expense. What does that mean if I'm a mobile phone company? I want to cover the entire DRC, the size of Western Europe. It is billions of capital, number one. Number two, given the high cost operating environment, I have to charge very high rates per month to customers. What is the implication? I can only serve people in the cities who make a lot of money. Small market, a lot of capital, you say, like, I'm not going to bother doing it. How about this approach, which is we created an independent telecom tower company. Well, instead of having every single mobile phone company build their own antenna, you build one, and they all share space on it, like a hotel. It has multiple consequences. One, we're saving them $250,000 per location. We invest that capital. Two, because they're sharing space on the same antenna, their monthly running cost is much lower. What does that mean? By lowering both their capital cost and their operating cost, they can charge less to their customers. And by charging less to your customers, you expand your market. Now you can cover the country. Number two, by saving the capital cost, they can cover the whole country in terms of towers. The government wins too. If every single person is to build 10,000 antennas to cover a country, guess what? You only have probably one player. But now, if the capital cost is no longer an issue, you can have multiple mobile phone licenses and can have competition. So what happens? The customer wins. Mobile phone companies win because we save on CapEx and OpEx. And the government wins by creating more competition. So this is really the model where I'm not going there to take money from you. I'm going there to save you money, and we win both ways. Finally, in terms of how the other layer we talked about that was mentioned earlier is technology, and how technology is really changing business models. We talked about the example of prepaid in the power system, for example. We use mobile phone, small solar kits, and light bulbs. The thing is that many business models are getting reinvented. You don't need to build a shopping mall in Africa. You have already these informal markets that are low cost. How about you create an online platform that aggregates all those players and you do the payments? Today, when you go to Dakar, people are selling their products on Facebook or on WhatsApp. They don't need an expensive shopping mall. And guess what? Traffic is bad in any way. So the key is, again, reinvent the business models that are low cost and also leverage the existing infrastructure and solutions they have created. Now, if I'm a Spanish company, I have 1 more minute, is how do I go and enter these markets, right? So I think number one is, when I say you have to commit, and what I mean by you have to commit is, we always talk about tourists versus natives. If I'm a tourist, I say, look, this seems like an exciting destination. I'm going to go to Nigeria tomorrow. The first time there's an issue, I pack my bags and I leave. Guess what? You're not committed. You will never understand the market and have great positioning. You have to say, I'm in it here for the long term. I'll give you one example. We're building this gas importation facility in West Africa to replace heavy fuels because the country's supply short in power. And so we had to conduct a tender process to have somebody build at the port a breakaway so that you can stop the current so that the boats can arrive. That requires mining and a quarry. Guess what? When you send the RFP, there was one Chinese company that 10 years ago bought all the quarries surrounding the port. The entrepreneur knew that, look, I'm going to make a bet in this city. They'll have to build on the port. I'm going to lock in the feedstock. That means I'm going to be the lowest cost, I have the lowest transportation cost, and I can guarantee delivery. That takes a vision. Second one is, in terms of commitment, is investing in people. We talked about it's hard to find management teams. Your companies have excellent talent, but how about you focus on building the next generation of leaders? You have 1.2 billion people in Africa with average age of 18 years. They're all dying to come to Europe. Spain has 45 million people. How about you have a competition? Actually, you already have those competitions. You get the top 10 math kids in West Africa or across Africa and have them come to your universities. They learn your language, adapt to your values, work in your companies, and understand your systems. And what does it mean? The day you're going to go compete for a business, you can send that entrepreneur who knows their home market but has your values to build the businesses for you. But it has to be a deliberate strategy. It cannot be 5 years from now you say, I want to enter Senegal. It has to be, I'm committing to these markets. Let me build the talent and grow that talent. A final point I would say is, just touch on, is the win-win piece. The customer has to realize that you are a force for good. Save them money, have a positive impact, and so do regulators. So don't go and just be extractive in value. I'll pause here. We can have discussed later for questions.